Hello everybody, here is the final of my eggplane group build. Now this is the SU-33 flanker. So I did a nice little cool base on it. I designed this up in AutoCAD and printed it out on my printer to look like a aircraft carrier, so that way it's like it's taking off. All I do is have a little wire in there, so that way it's kind of flexible. That way I can get the right angle. Decals went on pretty nice. There's only a couple spots that kind of wanted to come up as that, but I think this kit's relatively new, so it didn't do too bad. For the camouflage, I used the model color acrylic. I first tried to airbrush it on, and I didn't have a nice clean sharp edge like this one calls for, and my camo is a lot bigger. I figured I'd do it bigger like that because it's an eggplane build. You know, everything's over exaggerated, so I over exaggerated the camouflage. There's a few at the top. After I put the acrylic down, I did a matte coat clear, and then I did the decals, and then I did another coat of matte coat clear to keep those down, because I don't trust the decals that come in these eggplane kits. Right now it keeps on wanting to shift. I got it so I can take it out still, just in case, because even though I'm calling this a final, there's a couple things I wanted to try to do, but I'm not gonna have time. So, and one of them is I wanted to make the jet flames coming out. Wanted to design that in the 3D printer and print it out as clear, and then do some kind of acrylic paint to make it look the color of the flame, which is like a bluish purple. So I was going to do that. But like always, these are a very fun build. So on that base, this is the one that this is the second one I printed. This is the first one. I had it so thin that it actually cracked, and then I ripped it open just to see inside. But that's what it looks like inside. I thought it was pretty neat. Something to share. You can see how thin it was. So it just really didn't have enough meat there for it not to crack. So it did crack in quite a few places. So, and since I'm talking about 3D printer, you know, printing this on a 3D printer, a lot of people have interest in doing a 3D printer. So I figured I'd share that with you right now. The resin 3D printers are very affordable. They are very small. They do take up very little space. This is quite a big print for that. The width is the max width for mine. There is bigger ones that cost 3 times more than what the littler ones cost. So it is that. And as you can see, you get nice details. So you can get relatively nice. Now when I printed this one off, there is some problems in it that, you know, this one didn't have. This one is a lot smoother. The reason for that, I printed this out when it was 50 degrees, and I had to have it outside, or not outside in the elements, but outside in a shed that had power. And there's a line right here. That line is when it even got colder. So this is even, that resin's colder. Now it is suggested to print above 70 degrees for this reason. You know, it is a fluid, so that it will get a little thicker as the temperature drops. So that is one thing you have to take in mind. The other reason why this is outside is because the fumes of that resin is super toxic. I had it in my model room the one time, and I did a few prints. That night when I went to bed, I had I could feel the effects of that. I didn't really smell it, but it was in the air. I did have the room being vented out, but you got to really take in consideration of that. It did affect my health that day. So with that being said, I suggest if you guys ever get a 3D printer, do not have it in an area where there's pets or you or kids. So I print it outside in a different building. That way it's not where I'm living, being at. It's out where I go set it up, I let it go, and I forget about it and come back in. And that is not that big of a problem, because setting these up, and it takes probably about 15 minutes to set up. The printing time on something this size is 10 hours. How many layers it is. Some print that the time is not by what the shape is, it is by the height of it. So that would be this dimension, because it is printing, like this is how it was printing. So it goes down and cures it and all that. So that length is what based the time on. So say if you had 50 pieces that fit in that square, the time from that 50 of them printed versus just one of them printed is going to be the same time, because it's just all in that height. Because you have your build plate go down, it sets it, and you have a cure time, and then you have a pull and a release time. So that is your time in it. It's not like the filament printers that actually have to go on that shape. This is just the time of this moving up and down, and that is also based on your resin and your resin your resin temperature, the temperature that you're printing it at. If you have it in a warmer conditions, the resin will be thinner, so that way your exposure rate is actually slower. But for I did have a couple problems. There's a crack right there, and there's a crack right there. There was probably something in my vat, but that right there was just something happened. Maybe a plane crashed or something. Like there's another one. How this one's hollow. That's another thing. You want to print hollow. You don't want to. You can print these solid, but you're going to use a lot of resin. It's going to be heavy as a cinder block. It's also going to use most of your resin. So you have to have little portholes for it to drain, and those usually have to be at the top. So I have portholes here, and that's for the inner resin to come out, and then when you clean it up. The other thing is the wash. After you print it, usually let it sit and drip back into the vat for a little while, and then you need to wash it. Most resins are alcohol required, needed to clean it. The ones I've been using are water based. They seem to be growing in popularity, so you need to take that and you need to dip it in water, and some areas maybe brush it, but this piece will actually be kind of rubbery at that phase, and then you need to take it and put it in UV light for a while to completely cure. If you have supports or anything like that, like if I printed that to be in the base, you would have to have supports going from here to the base, because that would probably just be sitting out into nowhere, and it'll be warped, or it will be just floating, and it won't be on your final print. When you're setting these up and you have that raw resin, you got to make sure you're wearing gloves. On some of the forums and on Facebook and that, some people have been putting pictures on it. They say, well, I'm a man, I don't need to wear no stinking gloves, it ain't gonna hurt me. well, then eventually it will catch up to them, and it will start to eat your skin off your fingers. And not just a little bit, it'll actually be big chunks. Because at first I was thinking too, it ain't gonna bother me too much. It's just resin. But the more and more it gets on your bare skin, it'll start to eat the skin off your hands. And I'm sure none of you guys want that to happen. So I know there's a lot of talk about everybody getting into 3D printing, resin printing. There's a lot of people that don't know about it yet. I've been doing a few prints. I do have both types of printer. I have the filament and I do have the resin printers. The resin one is going to be the one that people are going to want for model building because you can get the detail in the small pieces. That is the one that I actually printed off, the little figures and such. And so the detail on it is super small that you can get versus the filament printer. You cannot get very small detail. I mean, I probably could have printed this into a filament printer, but you see the lines there. It would have been much worse with the filament printer. Some people have got it dialed down where the lines are very small, but they're still there. But this was just for the eggplane build. I really didn't care. Now, if it was a figure or something like that, I would have been just waiting until it got warm. So I hope that part helps. I hope you guys like the eggplane build. I really try to get some detail into his visor. I have it light blue at the bottom and then dark blue at the top. It's not as drastic as I had it the first time, but I think it fits it. And we'll see. I like to build those I don't know what they're called. I'm sure I've already had somebody complain about what I called it before. But, the fire that comes out of the exhaust engine. I'm not an expert, and I don't care to be an expert. I went to school long enough for what I do actually do. So, I don't need to learn anymore. I'm done. So, hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Want to make sure it gets out before the end of this group build. That was a blast. Thanks to Charlie, Mac, and Daniel, Munchkin Modeler, for hosting this. It's always a great build to kind of get off to the side and get out of the routine builds. I actually bought 4 more, so I do have more to add to the stash. And nice thing is they're cheap as hell. So I'll have plenty of cool builds to pick from next year. And so until next time, I'll see you guys later.